Welcome to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. I'm Bernie Flowers, one of Uncle Sam's wayward children. I believe that our country's best days are still in front of us, but if those best days are to come, we need to change the direction of the country now, before it's too late. I intend to talk about important topics every week in hopes of helping to improve our country and our way of life. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let's get started. Our guest for episode 39 is Commander Patrick Grady. While a student at the University of Texas, Commander Grady enlisted in the United States Marine Corps Reserve, Infantry, in 1984. Graduating from UT in 1985, he jumped ship to the United States Navy Aviation Officer Candidate School, where he earned his commission as an ensign in August of 1986, and he earned his wings as an unrestricted Naval Aviator in January 1988. Commander Grady flew the SH-60B Seahawk helicopter from cruisers, destroyers, and frigates, deploying to a myriad of locations in the Pacific Rim and in the Middle East. Commander Grady attended the Naval War College and Joint Forces Staff College in the run-up to becoming an expert in the field of information operations, specifically Operation Security. Post-retirement, Commander Grady worked as a defense contractor in information operations, and later he left defense contracting, pulled the trigger on his GI Bill, and returned to college to earn a bachelor's degree in construction science management, and currently he's working as a construction quality control project engineer. Patio has always been a witty humorist and a barracks philosopher, keeping me and our mates entertained during the many, many long hours of boredom and moments of terror that we experienced together. I thought to ask him for his musings, in no particular order, on life transitions, the blessings of a military life, current events, and the availability of wisdom. So with all that said, Patio, what's good?
Everything's good, Bernie.
Man. Go ahead,
brother. The weather's nice down here in Texas. A little chilly, not like what you guys are going through.
Oh.
Which is why I'm wearing this spectacular shirt, because it's kind of spring festive.
Speaking of that shirt, I don't think I've seen anything like that since I was in in the Far East. Where'd you get that thing from?
I got this shirt. It's called a batik, and I got it in Langkawi, Malaysia, when I was there for the Langkawi International Maritime Aerospace Expo. So think Paris Air Show, but in Asia or Malaysia, and with boats.
Wow.
I'm sorry, ships.
Man, you are full of surprises. I got a question for you, though.
Shoot.
Current events. Since you're kind of well-rounded fellow and you keep up with everything, and have you been watching all this Jeffrey Epstein stuff?
I wouldn't say I've been watching it all, because some of it seems a little too far out there, like fake. But enough of it is resonating that, there's kind of a problem there. Let's just put it that way. And
before you go any further, we can't talk like we used to talk on the back of a C-130. All right?
Do you mean like yell at each other because it's so loud? Or are you talking about like
cussing,
having a low sodium word choice, as in no salty language?
No salty language. You know what I mean.
Okay.
So now go on with your answer.
So, I mean, first of all, I hear this term, the Lolita Express.
Oh, Lord.
And I, I kind of understand a little bit of the Lolita story, not my bailiwick, but I'm kind of like, that seems like an attempt to kind of cutes it up a little bit. And I find that a little unnerving. The other thing is, I'm kind of surprised, and I haven't read the complete list of names that are mentioned in the 4 document drops now.
At least.
But I'm kind of surprised by the presence of a couple of names. I mean, particularly with if we're going to call it the Lolita Express, I would not expect Michael Jackson or Kevin Spacey to be on that list. Kevin Spacey, for obvious reasons, because of his proclaimed defense for the Me Too backlash he faced, and Michael Jackson, because whatever Michael Jackson's demons and shortcomings were, and you can get more information on that from Macaulay Culkin. But Michael Jackson knew a good song title when he heard it, and Lolita Express doesn't make that. So I'm kind of shocked that they're both on the list.
Wow.
The other thing I'm kind of shocked about is that Miley Cyrus is not on the list, because when I look at the people whose names are on the list, and again, some of them are on there because maybe they did things, and some are on there because maybe they were just mentioned in documents, but this whole group of people have really taken a wrecking ball to institutions and offices and positions in the United States, right? I get it. You're a billionaire. You're a former president. You're playing by a different set of rules. You're playing on a different field of play. But this kind of stuff, it's like, hey man, you're kind of like undermining a lot of things that the vast majority of the citizens and residents of the United States, that's not in their wheelhouse, kind of a deal, So that's kind of where I'm at.
Totally uncool, man. Let me ask you, I tell you, I mean, to me, all these rich people getting exposed for their dirty deeds is hilarious to me. And the bottom line, it shows me that justice eventually prevails. Because as I remember, it was 2019 when Epstein went to jail, and here it is 2024, and we still are seeing new names come out, be released on that list. So speaking of list, as an aviator, tell us what a passenger manifest is and why is that important?
Okay, so I was a helicopter guy, and I had 2 seats for passengers. So we really didn't deal like in a big manifest, but whenever we would, transport passengers, we had to document them on the back of our yellow sheet, which was a form we'd fill out that talked about who was on the plane and what crew position and how many hours they got of stick time, like first pilot time, co-pilot, etc. And the reason that's important is you got to know who's on the plane, because God forbid if something happens, you got to know who's on the plane.
So it's pretty hard to change those things, huh?
Well, I would think so. Now, for the kind of question you're asking, I would suggest someone who's a charter pilot, like on the level that these men and women who are flying the Lolita Express down to wherever. I think it's somewhere in the U.S. Virgin Islands is where his private island is. Which now that I think about it, suddenly I'm uneasy about all those hours I spent when I was a kid watching Fantasy Island. Hey, boss, the plane. Anyway.
Don't get me to laughing, man. I'm trying to be serious here.
I am being serious. Comedy is very serious business.
Yes, it is.
So anyway, but getting back to the manifest, so somebody who flies charters would really be able to provide you the very in-depth, like this is the FAA requirements or the ICAO, International Congress of Aviation Organization, or something like this. I forget. They would be able to. But the bottom line is when a jet flies from point A to point B, it's very important that everybody knows who's on that jet at point A, and then who gets off that jet at point B, and then who's on that jet when they go from point B to C or back to A, what have you. And the reason that is if bad things happen, like a crash, you need to know. You need to know.
Need to know.
And who to look for and who to notify. The other thing is it's sort of a barricade to keep the unauthorized people from kind of sneaking on the jet for whatever reason, stowaway, nefarious purpose, what have you.
Yeah.
But that's why that document's important. And in some of the kind of like in the run up to this, some of the light reading I've been doing on this data dump of these Epstein documents is apparently these things are, particularly when they're latched to a flight plan, and particularly one that covers international destinations, the FAA holds on to them. So it's a kind of an evidence trail. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like who's got the best documentation, because everyone's trying to minimize risk and CYA or cover your. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Since I was told to keep it G.
So to caveat that, I mean, you know, some of those lists, I mean, you mentioned Michael Jackson and you mentioned Miley Cyrus or whatever. Who else, I mean, on the list that you read, who stands out and why?
Okay, so let me be clear. I'm not saying that Miley Cyrus is on the list or ought to be. I was making a joke because of her song Wrecking Ball, all right? And I'm thinking Michael Jackson. I know he's on the list, or I think he is, because I saw his picture in the article.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking he ought not to be, because I'm thinking for what Epstein was doing, Michael was, you know, he was eating off a different buffet line. Let's just leave it at that, right? And the same thing for Kevin Spacey. But to be honest, a lot of the names were, you know, deep pocket, back of the smoke filled room billionaire guys that I never even heard of. I really hate to say this. I'm not shocked that President Clinton is prominently mentioned. I will say this. I don't know that all his mentions are, how shall we say, salacious. It's kind of like, hey, you know, I was there, he was there, that kind of a thing. Like I said, I haven't gotten down into the details, but it's kind of disappointing, because one of the things I think about when I see a situation like this, it kind of reminds me of Tailhook.
Yeah.
In the sense that you had a group of people, and some of them were there and knew nothing about what was going on, and some of them were there and when I say they knew nothing about what's going on, these people are like, yeah, I'm here for the conference, and then I'm going to go home and nerd out. And then some of them were there like, hey, I'm here for the conference, the professional development pieces, and then I'm going to go, you know, have a couple of beers and party. And
now, Patio, before you go any further, you know, a lot of people aren't military, so tell them a little short version of what Tailhook is.
Okay, so what Tailhook is an organization that the word escapes me. It's kind of like a fraternity, sorority, if you will. Now, since there's, you know, men and women involved, but it's a place for people who fly fixed-wing aircraft off the carriers to kind of celebrate the fact that they're doing something very unique and very difficult, and at times very dangerous, and always very hazardous. And what happened was, after the first Iraq War, where the United States military and with a potload of coalition partners steamrolled Saddam Hussein and the Iraqi army and Iraqi military after they had invaded Kuwait. And they had a convention. The Tailhook convention was always traditionally in Vegas, and things got a little bit out of control. And then what happened was various, you know, there was some circling of the wagons, which this is, I think, what you're seeing in the Epstein case.
Yeah.
Because that's a human instinct. You know, somebody says, hey, man, you're at that party, bad things happen. Circle my wagons, right? So it's a very, very, very human instinct. And so, but what happens at the end of the day is that, and I'm really hoping this is what happens with the Epstein thing, is you find out that hey, I got a small number of super bad actors. I mean, these were people who are all up in the human trafficking and the exploitation of those young women, and they were doing it for their own gain, and they didn't give a hoot nanny about those young women. I was going to say something more peppery, but I backed it off. And then the rest of the people are kind of like, yeah, it's a cool island, and I know there's something going on over there, but I don't know what, or, you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
So, and that's got to be sifted through, right?
Yeah.
You got to pour that flour into the sifter, and you got to pat the side and see where the boll weevils come out, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's been done yet. But that was kind of like Tailhook, because that was the kind of thing. There were a lot of good men and women whose promotions were held up because the Congress got involved, and there were some people who were like, yeah, we did that actually had to do those bad things. So, and I think that's what you're going to see here. That's what I hope, because if we end up, if it ends up something larger than that, where it's like, oh yeah, look at all these bad actors, that will be, to be euphemistic, highly disappointing.
Yeah, to say the least.
So,
no, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
What I was going to say was, because the other thing too is that the difference between the Tailhook and this, though, is that these people are, with the exception of the billionaires who are in the dark smoking cigars, are very prominent. And I think there's going to be a reckoning, because we kind of have in this modern era, like, hey, oh, I like that actor, I like that actress, I love their work in this, I love this work in that. I know them, and we don't. We do not know them, and I don't care what exposure they have on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Yickety Yak, Tinder, Grinder, you name it. We don't know those people. We don't know what's in their heart. Yeah, they can lay down a good character in film, but when they're off camera and they're in their private world, in their heart of hearts, they may be as dark as sin, or they may be something tremendous. We don't know. And so you still elevate them, and then when you see them get attached, and I'll say attached because nothing's been adjudicated or proven yet. When you say attached, then you're like, holy cow, how could that be? Well, that's because you put too much emotional investment.
Well, you kind of answered my next question, what was going to be, do you think the system's protecting them? And honestly, it seems like they are the system. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes and no. So, I mean, if I were writing a movie script, yeah, the system is protecting them. It's a cabal, and they're all in it together, right? But realistically, and this is just what I think, because I'm not on the inside, and a lot of people, like Bill Clinton, doesn't return my phone calls anymore.
How dare he?
Yeah, in fact, I think I got myself on a list. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but the point being is, it's very, and I'm not saying it's not impossible. I'm just saying I have a hard time believing that there's this big system out here that's protecting all these people as an organized effort. Think about, like, you're in the Air Force, you're involved in large-scale military operations, you've got this plan, and it's all moving together. I have a hard time believing that. That said, somebody show me some compelling evidence, I'll consider it. The other thing, though, what I do think is, we are talking about the rich and influential, perhaps even powerful. And again, getting back to it's human nature, they're going to be surrounded by sycophants. So there are going to be a small army of people who are like, it is in my best interest to protect, and then insert the name, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Kevin Spacey, whatever in there because my success is predicated on them being viable and relevant on this global scale, right? The handlers, the lawyers, those are the people I'm talking about. The other thing too, kind of like, because when I was looking through the news, the reports, is that a lot of these document drops come out of the civil suit, and I don't remember the plaintiff's name, but it was against Giselle, or I'm sorry, no, I just learned today it's Ghislaine Maxwell. But I also learned that Giselle's a funnier name. But be that as it may, and that's not my original work. I attribute that to Jimmy Dore. Anyway, but it was terribly funny, and I couldn't resist using it.
There you go. That's okay, man.
But the woman who sued her, when she sued her, she's an adult. She's above the age of majority.
Yeah.
But a lot of the actions and accusations and stuff were associated with her being a minor. So I'm thinking that maybe that kind of sensitivity slows things down as far as like getting these documents out. And obviously, if Ghislaine has attorneys, which she clearly does, they're going to fight that stuff too. And I don't know what kind of an estate planning system that Jeffrey Epstein had in place, but I'm sure even though he's dead, I'm sure he's got attorneys fighting on behalf of his assets to kind of keep these things contained. The other thing I will say this too about the list, I found it ironic that there are some news commentators saying like, yeah, Trump was mentioned, he's on the list. And then when you read, and again, I haven't read the whole thing, so check me out. But when you read through, it's like, yeah, I don't like that guy Trump, or let's pop into his casino. And it's like, yeah, I'm thinking that's not of the caliber to rise up to this conspiracy.
It's funny. I kind of follow Jimmy Dore too, and I know you do. And it's kind of like we're getting to a point where we can't trust our mainstream media anymore, and that's not a good thing. What do you think about that?
I agree. It's not a good thing, and I have again a theory. So part of the problem with mainstream media. And let's talk the big three: ABC, NBC, CBS, and then the cables: MSNBC, CNN, Fox. And my apologies for anybody I omitted. But the problem is, you will look at somebody on TV, and they're talking, and you're like going, "I am listening to a news broadcast," and the reality is no, you're listening to an opinion piece. Doesn't matter which end of the spectrum it is. You're listening to an opinion piece, but you think it's news because the backdrop looks like the news station, the desk, the crawl, all that stuff looks like the news station, and it's not. And the other thing too is, I grew up, as did you. You had people like Chet Brinkley, Walter Cronkite.
Yeah, that's what I grew up with.
And in the mornings, the Today Show, Barbara Walters.
Yeah.
And these people came across like very serious news broadcasters. Walter Cronkite, CBS Evening News, and that's the way it is.
Yep.
And it was like, I'm just going to give you a regurgitation of the facts. Even Dan Rather was like that before, Bush 43 gets elected, and Rather kind of lost his mind. I'm not sure how that all happened, but it was like, here it is.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. Make your own opinion. Walter Cronkite didn't sit there and say like, well, hey, this is what happened today, and let me take a couple of toots on my pipe, but yeah, I don't know about that, right? It was almost completely bereft of opinion. And now you see a news broadcast, and it's like, I'm not sure, am I watching news or I'm watching opinion? And what makes it even worse is a lot of those broadcasts I've noticed are transcribed, and they show up like on a web page.
Yeah.
And now you can read the script. And one of the things I've noticed is and it doesn't matter what the issue is, when I read news broadcast transcriptions, I notice a poop ton of adverbs. And that's bad.
Say that again?
A poop ton of adverbs.
Okay. That's what I'm not used to you saying, but I appreciate you curtailing your language somewhat.
No problem. And that's bad because what adverbs do, I mean, I get it. They modify. I don't want to get all grammar nerd because I got a BA in English, but they modify verbs and they modify adjectives. But what they also can do is they can kind of inject some squishiness. So, like if I say, "Hey, Bernie, did you see that fire truck?" And you say, "What fire truck?" I go, "The red one." I don't need to say the really red one, because fire trucks are red unless you're on, an air base, and then they're kind of this weird chartreuse yellow green, neon lima bean color.
I don't know why that is, but that's another story for another time.
You know what? That's a real. I don't know either. I know that on the flight line. So not only were the fire trucks on the air base this weird neon green lima bean color, so were the halon bottles, which were these giant. They looked like baby water heaters, but they were full of halon, and they were very good at extinguishing fire.
Most people you're talking to don't know what halon is.
I don't know what halon is.
Yes,
I just know it's good at fighting fires.
And causing cancer too, but that's another story for another time.
Well, see, I didn't even know that. Now,
anyway,
so back. I'm sorry, I got us off track.
Oh man. Anyway, brother, I have kept you on here long enough. I got one more question for you. Are you ready?
Sure.
The floor is yours. Say whatever you wish to the people. Whatever's on your mind.
Wow, hey, we did not cover this in rehearsal.
You know I was going to throw you a live one. That's what I do.
Oh, this is a big one. All right, so kind of what's on my mind is I'm kind of anxious. That's the right word about this upcoming year.
Yeah.
I'm a little I'm disconcerted about the events of October 7th in Israel and the fallback of the fallout, if you will, not just across the globe, but also in the United States. Even though my political view, I'm a quasi-libertarian, right? Let me live my life, and I'll let you live your life. And I want the government just to get the heck out as much. I know it can't get out of all of my life, but just get out as much as you can, right? You can stand on the front porch, but I'm shutting the door. That's kind of where I'm at, right? But I'm kind of worried about how the people who are more partisan are drifting to opposite ends of each other. Because I will tell you, listen, if I were a heavy hitter, like if I were Speaker of the House or President of the Senate, I would say, I don't care what the FDA and the CDC and all those medical bureaucrats say. We're going to have ourselves a smoking room behind the chambers, and we're going to go in there and we're going to smoke cigars and we're going to make sausage and we are going to do things that are right for this nation and the American people. Kind of like back in the old days.
Yes, sir.
And because we got a lot we're going to have Scotch, but because we got a lot younger legislators, we'll have to have White Claw. So anyway, but the point being is, I'm kind of concerned about if, and I don't know really, because I'm not in the building. I don't know if the parties and the factions of the parties are drifting apart, but certainly the media on either end makes it sound that way.
Sure does.
We need to get back to like making sausage and figure and just like, look, I'm going to give up this, you give up that, we have ourselves a consensus, let's move on.
Yep.
Because that's the point, is that's all moving now. So I'm a little bit nervous about 2024 because the fallout from October 7th and the whole, I almost said something I shouldn't have said. Let's just call it conundrum with the ballot measures with Trump and all of that stuff. The other thing that I am worried about is the border, and I'm worried about it for a couple of different reasons. One of them is that what gets lost is that all right, I'm gonna rip the Band-Aid off. In my view, there are two groups. I don't know how big they are, but there's two groups. There's a group of people who are looking for target audiences that they can influence to support them, right? Target audience supports the group. And then there's a group of people who are like looking for cheap labor. And that's very simplistic, right? But the thing about the border situation is that when you have these scads, hordes, whatever you want to call it, coming across, in a military sense, what that is doing is that is providing concealment for illicit flows. And when I say illicit flows, I mean guns, money, drugs,
Fentanyl.
people. Well, yeah, fentanyl would be under the drugs, right?
Yeah.
People going in both directions, north and south, right? And there's a lot of those. There's some of those that horde that comes over. Bad actors shouldn't even be here, and there's some that are misguided. But there are some that are like, hey, my neighborhood is it's a poop hole, and I got to get out of there, and I understand that. But and of course, then they got to deal with the cartels and whoever else is involved in this human train. And there's a lot of exploitation, and put any adjective on the front of that you want that's going on. And that needs to stop, because as sympathetic as many of those people's cases are, we need to stop that, because in getting from, pick the country in Latin and South America where they're immigrating from illegally, well, they're not illegal until they cross the Rio Grande, but at least in Texas. But the point being is we got to stop that down there. We need to somehow better broadcast, because I think the cartels are saying, hey, if you do this, pay us $5,000, we'll get you up there. And that's not the case. But the point being is those people are being exploited, and they're being put in a position in the United States where their future, their status, resolution, however you want to call it, is now compromised.
Yeah.
And that's going to take. I'm not really a big. If we're talking about a neighborhood, I say it: good fences make good neighbors. But if a non-neighbor's in the neighborhood, I'm thinking good fences really don't mean much. So I'm not like build the wall kind of a guy. But that said, it's like, if it takes, we build this wall and we do some other things over here, i.e. do some, oh God, I can't believe I'm going to say this, some information operations to counter the cartel message, that's okay.
I'm
But the
not even
point
going to ask
being,
you about all that because we'll both get in trouble.
what's that?
Nothing. Nothing. That's another life that we lived a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of a little bit passionate about it for two reasons. Reason number one, uh, in my defense contractor life, I had a gig where I was part of a team. We would take somebody's plan and deconstruct it. We would help them figure out what in your plan is more important than the other things. And then we would help them like, this is how you measure that if you're advancing. And one of the people we did this for were a couple of sharp officers in the Border Patrol in the Tucson sector in Arizona. And we did it in San Antonio, and we impressed these two guys enough that they invited us out to Tucson. And not only did, of course, that's not a big deal. Come out to Tucson. Yeah, we're paying the airfare. But they got like 15 people.
Yeah.
That knew, some of them were like deeply involved in the plan, but they got the right people that you needed to assess these things. And then one of the other things that they did was they gave us a tour of the border. So I've seen the wall, I've seen the bollards, and and I heard these guys and women and talk about these issues. And like, for example, one of the things that I learned was part of their plan had to do with deportations. And in the media, I got to stop doing air quotes. I'm sorry.
That's okay, man. I asked
I'm
you
gonna
to
hook
come on,
I'm gonna
man.
hook electroshock up, and every time I do this, I get zapped. Right? Anyway, in the media, there are people like, oh yeah, just put them on the bus and take them over. Well, not that simple. There's actually several different types of deportation, and they're adjudicated like, hey, here's type 1, you get 5 of them a year, or type 3, you get 2 of them, whatever the case may be. It's just not that simple putting people on a bus and driving them south in all cases. But none of these field people that we were working with knew that, but they knew the person who did. She comes into the room and says, yeah, that'll work, blah, blah, blah. And so my point being is that they really sat down with us and went through the whole process, right? And got a better understanding of the problem. But that's the other thing. What I was saying about the problem with that is like most people don't want to get into that issue, but
It's
that
funny,
deeply,
man.
and particularly my mother-in-law.
Petition.
Oh yeah, I went there.
Let's not go there. I don't want to get you. I don't want to get you in trouble.
I'm always in trouble.
Well,
She's
that's
my
all right.
mother-in-law.
I'm not going to mention your family. I know them all well, but they might not appreciate me bringing them up on on this podcast. But that's another story for another time. Brother, thanks for spending time with your old road dog. Happy New Year to you and your family. And I want you to have safe travels. And I want you to get me one of those shirts.
I will. Well, you could try your buddy. Is Jeff Bezos on the list?
I don't know him.
You can call him up and say, "Hey Jeff, give me a batik."
You mean Dr. Evil?
So so I get it. He's got a shaved head, but to call him Dr. Evil is an insult to Dr. Evil.
Don't even get me started, bro. You just reminded me back in the old days when you used to keep me entertained on our, as I said, hours of boredom followed by moments of terror.
Okay. Before we go, can we do one more thing?
The floor is yours.
All right. So one of the things that I've been doing, when I got a couple of 5-10 minutes to kill, I call it YouTube rolling. So you bring up the browser, click YouTube, and you're going to get various videos of some flavor, right?
Yep.
And then you just and you scroll through it, and then you pick one, and you go click. And you watch the video. And it's like, yeah, that was good or not. But then you go back to the top, click YouTube again, get another set of videos, right? Well, in doing so, I call that YouTube rolling. In doing this, I found a YouTube video from the late, great Norm Macdonald.
Oh, an old favorite of mine.
Yeah, and I don't understand why when somebody's dead, they call them late, because they're never going to be late, but they're never going to be early. So, you know what I mean? They're dead. They're
dead.
They're not showing up for cocktails at 5. So why would you call them late? I don't know. But in this clip, the late great Norm Macdonald is telling a joke, and I don't know if he's high, intoxicated. I don't know if he's on the backside of suffering. I think it was brain cancer that killed him. I'm not sure about that.
Not sure,
but it was some kind of a cancer. I don't know. But he's kind of messing up the joke. But he's Norm Macdonald, and he can patch his leaky boat, right? Well, I watched that thing a bunch of times, and I think I have it pretty tight, the joke, if you'd like to hear it.
Roll with it, brother.
All right. A frog goes into the bank. Goes up.
Okay, already, here we go.
Yeah. Frog goes into the bank. He goes up to tell her, and he looks at her little name tag. It says, "Hi, my name's Patty. I'm here to help you." And he says, "Patty, I need a loan." And she's like, "You're a frog. Do you have a name?" He goes, "Yes. My name is Kermit." She goes, "Really? Kermit the Frog?" He goes, "Yes. I get that a lot, but my name is Kermit Jagger. My father was Mick Jagger." And she's like, "You're a frog named Kermit Jagger, and your father's Mick Jagger, and you want a loan. I'm sorry, but this is we don't loan money to frogs. I need a loan to buy a new lily pad. We don't loan money to frogs. This is highly unusual." And Kermit says, "Patty," he's in his pocket. He pulls out this thing, and I don't have a thing in my fingers, but it's there. And it's like a 1-inch tall jade elephant carved, a piece of jade with an elephant carved on it.
All right.
He says, "Patty, you take this to the bank president. You show it to him, and he will understand everything." She says, "All right." So she takes it, and she goes to the bank president. She knocks on the door. She says, "Hey, Mr. Bank President." And he goes, "Yes, Miss Whack." She goes, "Hey, there's a frog in the lobby, wants a loan. He says his name is Kermit Jagger. His dad's Mick Jagger. He gave me this. I don't know what this is, but he said, show it to you, and you would understand." And the bank president's looking at it, and he goes, "It's a knick-knack, Patty Whack. Give the frog a loan. His old man's a rolling stone." Oh.
Why did I fall for that? I should have known better. Brother, you ain't changed in 20 years. Oh my God.
Well, I want to think I've changed, but it's like cheese. I've gotten better.
Okay, whatever.
Or a bottle of wine, right?
There you
That's
go.
you.
Whatever. Man, look, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for your intelligence musings. Thank you for entertaining us with that crazy joke. And I hope to have you on here sometime real soon. All right?
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, that's about it for now. This has been the Loyal Opposition Podcast, produced in association with Liberty Arise Media, Fallback Productions, and other podcasters. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast and to this channel. Be sure to get your copy of my book, Black Values Matter, available on Amazon or as an ebook on Audible and on Apple Books. And also, remember, it's okay to disagree, but if we want our country to prosper, we must insist on unity, transparency, and civility from ourselves and our fellow citizens. Thank you for listening to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. See you next week. I'm Bernie Flowers. I'm a retired military officer, a retired civil servant, and a published author. I'm also a congressional candidate. It's time for a new vision for Maryland's 3rd District. Fighting for people before politics. Empowering through education. Prioritizing America's security. Building prosperity. And enhancing family-focused policies. Visit flowersformaryland.com to learn more.